If you are interested to find out how hard it is to be a commercial fisherman, just in general, this is the show for you because today we're gonna talk about why a group of fishermen, a union, is blocking the Newfoundland government from passing their budget this past year. We're gonna talk about why they're in front of Parliament, why they're taking out the public space, why they've been kicked out, and what it's all about. It has to do with crab fishing and prices and who they can sell to. We're going to talk about that on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin, and this is the podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about fishermen. That's right. We're going to be talking about fishers, a fisheries union who is staging a big protest. And I kind of came across this when I got back from Italy. I was, searching, I was scrolling on TikTok, just, passing the time by before I go to sleep. It's really bad when you take your phone and you start opening up your phone when you go to sleep. But I was happy to find this story because I found it pretty interesting. The video was actually pretty weird. It was a man yelling at a woman, and it was pretty gross in what I was talking about. And I was like, oh man, here we go. Another, Karen or Kevin video, and this is what's going to happen. But it was bigger than that, and I'm glad I looked into it. We're going to talk about that in just a sec. But before we do, I want to talk about one thing. Since I've gotten back from Italy, it's been quite the time. I'll tell you, just to adjust back to regular work life, and I've taken my time. I couldn't publish some YouTube videos that I wanted to publish, or I couldn't record them and edit them, and I just didn't have the time. I was jet lagged. I was feeling a little cloudy, and then I went back to what I forgot that I had before I left is Magic Mind. Magic Mind elixirs are fantastic for my brain. They kind of clear up from the fuzziness of getting back into the routines and making sure that not only am I awake, but just alert and ready to go with just life in general. And I think it's really important when we look at stuff like this and we talk about how, we have to pay attention and we have to make sure that things are good, that things are good with our minds, make sure they're clear, but it's also not getting a bunch of chemicals in there or bad stuff for you. Like I said before, I've said this before when I talk about Magic Mind, and a lot of the times it's been like, oh man, yeah, I'll have a Coke or I'll have something bad to get that energy up, and it was just never good enough for me because it would get me up, spike me up, and then boom, it would just crash me down like you'd never believe. And I think that was always a problem, and I didn't want to go through that, and I came across Magic Mind. I got a subscription. I've had it for a little bit. I use it every day, and I just like it because it just kind of makes me feel good. I'm putting natural, products in my body. I'm getting the caffeine is released slowly, and so it's not a big jump. So I'm awake and alert for longer. And just with a lot of stuff that I have to do and just getting back into the swing of things, it's just really good. So I want to share this opportunity with you. I reached out to Magic Mind. They gave me a code. So if you go to magicmind.com/protect ocean, you can use my code at checkout, protect20, to get up to 56% off your first subscription for the next 10 days. So check that out, magicmind.com/protect ocean. Use the code protect20 at the checkout and get up to 56% off your first subscription. That's it for that. That's my share for today. Check it out. I'd love to hear your thoughts in using it if you bought it from this promotion. So, all right, let's get back to it. Here's the video. The video is a man yelling at the director of communications for the Newfoundland and Labrador government. They were trying to pass a bill that was the budget, which is a major bill that has to be passed every year. They wouldn't let anybody in and to get to work. And so this woman was trying to come in. She's a director of communication. She was trying to come in, and this man and a number of men were just sort of surrounding her and yelling at her. So when I first saw the video, I was like, oh man, why is this guy yelling at her? And then, talking about his family and all this kind of stuff. And she's just trying to go. She had this weird look on her face, obviously uncomfortable in the situation, being yelled at and stuff. Probably doesn't really have to do anything with her. She's the director of communications. I don't really know much about the story and the political side of what's going on. But fishermen have, and fishing unions in Newfoundland have a very interesting and checkered past, I guess, with the government and trusting the government. Back in the early 1990s, when the cod moratorium was put in place, that was a huge hit for not only the economy of Newfoundland, but for the fishing community in Newfoundland and Labrador, because cod was the gold of the coast. It was what they had, cod has been what Canada was fishing for the last century. And they just didn't have it anymore. They overfished it, and there just wasn't enough to not only get enough money for it, but also just the catch per unit effort, the amount of time it takes to catch wasn't good enough to make a living. And so the government put a ban on it, and they put a moratorium on it. It's been in place ever since. And I remember watching as a video, I've told this story before, but I remember watching as on TV, the fishing union, the fishing union just coming in and going after the minister of fisheries for the province. Like, it was violent. It was bad. Luckily, nobody got hurt from what I remember. But that's kind of been, the sort of the relationship of the government really ever since. I mean, obviously they've worked together to negotiate certain terms and so forth, but this was obviously something that they want different. They want a little, what they're asking for is free enterprise. They want the ability to sell fish at their own price and any species of fish at their own price. Now, that is a large demand. And I'll tell you why they're asking for that, because right now they're crab fishing. They're going for the snow crab, and that is a very popular fishery right now. But they have to sell for a certain price. Everybody has to sell for the same price to Newfoundland processors, and they can only sell to them. They can't sell outside the province, not only to other provinces, but outside the country. And so it has to be within Newfoundland, and they don't like it because the processing plants have no competition. So they can price whatever they want. So think about this. You go out and you spend money on a boat, whatever it needs to be fixed, the diesel gas that goes into it, the gear that goes into it. You risk your life to go and get these crabs. You set your traps. You go back home. You come back. You grab the traps. You sell but they're only selling at a specific cost, at a specific price. And if that price doesn't equal a good margin for you to pay not only the people who helped you and the boat costs and all that kind of stuff and the gear costs and everything, it's not a profit. It's not worth it to these fishers. And that's what they're saying right now is there's no competition. There's really only one set of processing plants at one company. We sell to them. They dictate the price. We don't have a choice because we have to sell it based on government regulations. We want the ability to sell crab elsewhere, outside the province, outside the country. And to be honest, I get that. It makes it it just makes it easier for them to go out and shop for the best price and to keep the processors in Newfoundland a little bit more honest. You know what I mean? Because, once you have a monopoly, you can just set whatever you want. And fishers in the past, like even in Nova Scotia, I know that have, and I know it happens in the U.S., where at one point they were selling quotas to fishermen. Then all of a sudden they were selling it. Anybody could buy quotas. So licenses for quotas, right? And you have certain areas, because of the management, you have certain areas where you can sell those licenses, right, to those areas for that quota. And they would sell it to the fishermen. But then they were able to say, hey, we're going to open it up to anybody. So what was happening is business people took it upon themselves to go out and buy a number of them for a specific area. And then fishers had to go to those people and say, hey, we want to buy. We can't buy from the government because you bought it. Can we buy it so we can get access? Yeah, sure, no problem. You can buy it, but you have to sell it for a specific price. Well, that's not cool. Because then the fishers have no ability to set their own margins, right? And they are stuck. And this has been a big problem in the way quotas have been delegated for the long time, because they have to sell to the processing plants. Processing plants set the price. Those prices are ridiculous. When you can't get access to quotas, you have to make an agreement. They make a different contract. And to be honest, it's just not fair. And it's not something that should be done on a regular basis or at all. So these fishermen in Newfoundland, the crab fishermen, are like, hey, hold on a second. Now we want to be able to go outside the province and outside the country to be able to sell this, and you're not letting us. And not only that, we want to be able to do it to any fisherman, like any fish species or any seafood species. I feel like that's a stretch just from what we're looking at from overfishing. But, maybe opening up the fishery a little bit might be better. But is that opening up a can of worms, so to speak? No pun intended. But that's where we're at right now. It's pretty heated, according to some of the videos that I've seen on TikTok and on Instagram. I don't know if they're still protesting. This was last week when I saw it, but this is something that needs to be addressed. And we're seeing progress, but the fisheries union is not backing down. They want to be able to sell at whatever price they want and whatever species they want. They want free enterprise. They want control over their catch. They want to control how much margins they go. One option is to sell directly to consumer, right? To the person who, to myself, to you who likes to eat seafood. They can go directly to us. There are ways to do that, but that's a difficult thing to do. You have to open up an entirely different marketing system, maybe even join a number of sort of catch collectives, right? To see if you can be a part of that. If not, you have to do your own. That's a lot of work. And these fishermen are just not familiar with the business model, and we still don't know if this business model is good for the long run. So there's a lot going on in fisheries, and from an economic standpoint, and just from a livelihood standpoint. And I think what happens is, for me, I find a lot of fishers get, they get a bad rap. They get a rap that they're greedy and stuff, and it's just kind of like farmers, where farmers get a bad rap. And they don't. They're the ones who make the food, who produce the food, and usually it's the middle people who sell it that are usually the ones that are controlling everything. Like just in Canada alone, we have like a couple of different owners of grocery stores, like corporations that own a number of our grocery store chains, and they are setting the prices. They're making record profits, and they say, oh, well, supply chain has gone up. That's not true. Our farmers are not raising the prices. They haven't been able to because they're regulated to stay the same. But our grocery stores are raising the prices like crazy in the south as well as in the north, and it's getting even worse in the north. So there are a lot of problems when we look at how we dictate what price a fisher or a food producer, like a farmer, can actually sell to a processing plant to be able to distribute the food, right? That's not cool. That's not right. I feel like we need to do better in that. Negotiations need to be better. We need to make sure that, one, we ensure that the environment is protected, ensure that the fisheries is protected, but also make sure that these fishers can get paid and maybe run their own business, and have their own right over what they sell and how much they sell it for. I would love to hear your thoughts. It could be very controversial what I'm saying now. I'm not too familiar, but anybody is in fishery science or in fisheries at all, social science, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. This is something that I find a really interesting topic because it's dealing with people who use the ocean, our ocean users and some of our longtime ocean users that pass down their quotas and their fishing knowledge generation to generation. And it's getting harder and harder to do that. And that's a tradition that it's just become really interesting when you look at, protecting fish as well as catching fish and protecting these fishers and these fishing communities. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. DM me on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean. The other thing I would like to do is talk to you. I would like to have a 5 to 10 minute, maybe 15-minute conversation to get to know you, to get to know why you listen to this podcast, and just ask you a bunch of questions about how I can serve you better with the content to do that. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to make sure I am putting out the right content for you, and it's about time that I speak to more of you who may or may not have reached out to me in the past. I would love to hear from you. You can DM me on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean, or you can go to speakupforblue.com/contact and contact me. I'm going to put up a form soon. I'm going to have that linked in the show notes. But for now, just DM me or hit me up at speakupforblue.com/contact. And thank you very much for joining me on this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.